Hello, this is Mike Smith. Welcome back to another tutorial in Maya. This time I'll be showing you in a bit more detail how to use the extrude tool and what can go wrong if you're not too careful. Now, to begin with, if I have a basic cube like this, select the top face by right clicking, go to face mode, select the top face, then edit mesh, extrude. Now, if you've done some basic extruding before, you know it's as easy as just pulling up that face. And you can move around in any direction you like, and you'll find with the arrows, with the move tool, you have the scale tool built into this. So I can scale there as well if I want to. And you can still move around, and you can even click on this circle that goes around our extrude tool, and we get the rotate tool there as well. Now make sure you don't rotate too far and you don't go inside out and you don't go through itself. You have to be quite careful with that. If you find this quite tricky with all three tools there, you can simply select the individual tools from your tool palette. So with this face selected, we could use our move tool, our rotate tool, or our scale tool completely independently. Whichever way you find easier, there's no right or wrong. Now, something that can go wrong if you're not careful, if I press Z a few times to go back, is if you get distracted halfway through. Now, if you select this face, I'm going to go back to the select tool, so the scale tool there goes. Select this face, go back to edit mesh extrude, and then let's say you get distracted and you deselect that. Maybe you go and get a drink, you go and get something to eat, you get a phone call, and then you can't remember if you've already extruded this. So you select it again, and then you go back to extrude, and then you extrude there. The problem here is there will be a hidden face in between these two sections. Now you won't be able to see it, but if I go to edge mode, right click, go to edge, and if I select this edge, and move that using the move tool, you'll see there's a hidden face in here. And that goes right the way around. If I press Z to go back and double click on this edge to select the entire circumference, you'll see there's a hidden face. And that can cause a lot of problems later on if you don't want it there. So a quick tip for you, if I press Z to go right back, if you think you may get distracted, if you're in a busy environment or you're not too sure if you're going to forget that you've extruded or not, when you do select the face and as soon as you click on extrude, just move it up a bit. At least that way, if you've deselected it and you've come back, you can see that it's a different section. And then you can simply go back to your move tool and carry on moving that up if you need to. The next bit I'll show you is the difference between local and global mode. Now, if I select several faces, and I'm going to use a different object for this, so I'm going to go back to object mode, backspace to delete, and I'll use a sphere. So if I put a sphere in the center, I'm going to make sure it's in the center by zeroing everything off in my channel box. And I'll reduce the divisions down to about 10 just so you can see a bit more clearly. If I select several faces here, so I'm going to go ahead and select quite a few, maybe 6 faces. When I go to edit mesh and extrude, the standard extrude is what we call local. Now you'll see the move tool here is actually on the last face I selected, and the arrow is actually in the direction that the face is facing. So if I extrude that out, you'll see they all go out in their own independent direction, and you can see this actually gets bigger. So the further you go, the larger they're going to get. You can still move it around in different directions, but this is where you may want to go right back. So I'll go back to where I hadn't quite selected them all, select them again, go back to extrude, and you'll see just outside of our extrude tool there's like a small power button. Now that is to change between local and global mode. Global mode means our move tool here is actually set to the direction of the grid, and you'll see everything goes in the same direction. All their sizes maintain the same. I can still move that up, I can still scale it, but they all stay facing in the same direction. One last thing, I press Z again to go back, is, and you may have seen this in a previous tutorial, if I select these faces, go back to Edit Mesh, and you can see where it says Keep Faces Together. Now by default that will be ticked. If I untick that and go back to Edit Mesh Extrude, so you can see there's no tick there now, and now a local extrude will still go in the direction of each independent face, but each face will be completely independent. And you can get some quite interesting effects with this. You'll find if you select every face of the object and then go to Edit Mesh Extrude, again Keep Faces Together is unticked, find that last face that would have been selected, you can make quite a strange looking object, and that could be useful for a motion graphics project, maybe a logo, something quite futuristic. It's entirely up to you. Now one thing that's worth noting is if you did extrude in global mode and Keep Faces Together is unticked, you won't actually see any difference. So if I go back to Edit Mesh, Keep Faces Together is unticked, extrude. If I go to global and extrude that out, you'll see it looks the same. However, each face is still independent. So if I go to the Move tool here, they are independent. So just make sure when you extrude, make sure you've actually seen if Keep Faces Together is ticked or unticked. If in doubt, make sure it's ticked, that's the default setting. If you're unsure, just save your project and experiment. It's the best way to learn. And something that's worth noting, if I go right back, if I select some faces on the opposite sides of this object, so if I choose, it's actually one on the back here and then one on the front. If I extrude them locally, I'm going to tick Keep Faces Together again, because that's the default setting. Go to Extrude. Now locally here, it's going to go in the direction of each face. So you can see they're actually going out. And if you wanted to model something symmetrical, you could actually do this. You'll find if I move it up and down, one goes down, the other one goes up. So you may find you have to switch between local and global. If I go back to global here, if I move that up, they both go up. If I go back to local, it's then independent again. But you could use that to model, let's say, the handle of a sword. It could be the wings of an object. It's entirely up to you. So keep practicing, learn something new. Don't worry if you make a mistake. If you make a mistake, just try it again and always ask for help if you're stuck.